Done. You guys do whatever.
All right, well,
I'm making my list over here.
Is the September 28th legislative meeting. In attendance as Council President Shrimp, Councilperson Wolf, Mayor Hughes, and Councilperson Bruger, Chair of the Legislative Committee. That's all formal and done now. So did either of you two, Brian or Diane, see that Eric did email out the corrected sidewalk thing like an hour ago?
Yeah.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to, I saw it come in, but
Mhm.
I didn't have a chance to look at it. But there was some items on there that were supposed to be changed. Are they in red or anything like that to indicate? Or is this just, 'cause I can't comment on this unless I go back and
Look at next to the other one.
yeah. I mean, this is not
Well, I see one where it's highlighted in yellow. That might have been a changed one, but no, I don't see this. What I would think of like, okay, here's the strike through, and here's what we replaced it
Change
with.
tracking.
So I am comfortable, since this just got sent out today, keeping this legislation tabled, giving council members time to look over it and reproofread it. I know Councilperson Benedetti is going to want to go through it and look for mistakes and bring it. I mean, we're hanging on the preface of the third reading, and as I said all along, this is not something that needs to be passed in a rush. This hopefully won't matter for at least 4 or 5 years. So, anyone have any objection to that?
No.
no.
Wonderful. So let's look at tonight.
Hang on, before you go there, I do have something I wanted to point out. There is a little bit of wording in there about keeping sidewalks clear. I had talked to Jason about when I had mentioned typically you have to keep your sidewalks clear of snow and ice once it hits a certain amount, like if it's 2 inches or whatever. There is not specific verbiage, and Jason actually liked the fact that there was not specific if it was 2 inches or more, 3 inches or more, anything like that. All I'm doing is pointing it out. It doesn't have a specific amount. If council wants to do a specific amount of when residents do in fact have to shovel their sidewalks. I don't know if you guys want to look at Westerville. I don't know that you guys even want to implement it in the sidewalk policy, but if you have a 13 or 9 page or whatever sidewalk policy, maybe it's smart. I know that this is mainly for repair, but there is an actual spot in the sidewalk in that 9 pages or 13, however many pages. It does talk about that a little bit, I believe. And we had talked, Jason and I had talked about it. It was very brief last week, and I'm only pointing it out because we had brought that up, whether or not the village is going to be responsible to do their own and making sure that it's cleared of snow and ice once it hits a certain amount. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm just pointing it out.
It is at 1022.02, obligation of a budding owner. And it says, all sidewalks, integral approaches, aprons within the village shall be constructed in a manner with a good state of repair at all times. They must be kept reasonably clean of snow and ice during the winter months and free of obstructions at all time by the abutting owner or owners of the property in accordance with the village requirements set forth. So I think the question related to that would be, is that broad language good enough, or should it be more specific? Must be cleared when more than 1 inch of snow is present, must be cleared when yada yada, right? Because then when you make it more specific, if it's 3/4 of an inch, nobody's got to go out and clear it. But if it's, not reasonably clean, then that's a judgment call that we allow our code enforcement officer to make.
Yeah, right, well put. I would leave it up to the code enforcement officer. I would not do, I still have nightmares from the discussion we had on you know, when to park, when you should not park your, what is a snow emergency and when you're not going to park your car in the street. That was bad enough. And I don't think we should go there with this at all. I think we should.
Just a reasonable. If we later want to come up with something, I think that would almost be more of, you know, in the code type, wherever the grass height and all that is. Yeah, I like the vagueness.
Yeah.
I mean, just, I don't know. I mean, we've never had sidewalks here, so who knows? Me looking at that new section, and I know this is not something you can ever hang your hat on. I don't think there's a lot of people there who are not going to shovel their sidewalks.
Nope, don't say that. I lived in New
No.
Albany and it was one,
Really?
you literally would have 3 do it and 3 not do it. And which New Albany's not any better. I don't mean that, but we were in a brand new development. You know, the thing to remember with that, you can't control when the snow comes in. So you may have somebody that works night shift. You may have somebody that's elderly. You may have, so you do have to
travels, you know, you could have
Yes.
someone who's out for the week
Right.
traveling. It's just,
So,
it needs to just be, I just think we need some common sense. And if something really is truly a nuisance, we'll go after that. But
Yeah.
otherwise, we'll be tolerant of conditions. And
The risk of vague language is potential abuse, right? So if you are citing one property because it seems unreasonable there, but the same snow and the same accumulation 4 houses down doesn't get cited, then, but you know, it was the code enforcement officer said, well, I found it to be reasonable here and unreasonable there. You don't have a standard for the reasonable. It's just his interpretation, right? So, or their interpretation, to degender it. But you know, and there could be valid reasons why it's reasonable in one place and not reasonable in another, right? It was the last 10 feet of the sidewalk and nobody's ever going to walk over there, or you know, some other mitigating circumstance.
Or
So
just
that's just the risk.
way the wind blew, we got drifting in this guy's thing, and the other guy is where all the drift came from.
Right.
right, and you know, the good news is we don't have the mail carrier getting out of his truck. He's not walking the whole thing. So delivery people and all that, that's a courtesy.
Mhm.
You want to help the guys out, or might not land on your porch exactly, you know. But yeah, no, I think that it never worked any place. You know, any place I've been at, strict enforcement, it's just extremely difficult, and you spend a lot of time on it, especially being from Cleveland. You know, growing up with a lot of snow. You know, it is a big job to decide you want to take on every neighbor and the way they shovel or don't shovel.
I was Googling while you guys were doing that. There are some that are 2 inches. There's some that are 4 inches. There are some that are 6 inches. There's all different kinds. And basically, here's a couple things I'll say. We do not have an HOA, which is also one of the requirements in a lot of neighborhoods. So I think that is going to be one of the things that we will have to point out because here's the next part to this. I will promise you that the people that do it, that walk their dogs, will be complaining that their neighbors are not. And I'm only telling you that because, again, I lived in a neighborhood where that was the case. And I'm one of those people that walk constantly now. I walk in the street, so mine's going to be clear. So, and a lot of people will do that. So they may just move their dog over to the street because the street's clear. But a lot of times when you start walking in the street, you have salt, and that affects the dog as they're walking. So darned if you do, darned if you don't. So again, I'm not one to say 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, but I think the next part to this is, as a village, what are we going to do in our sections? Because I don't know if you want me to set the standard for it, or if you guys want to set the standard for it, but I do want a standard set for something that we are going to do as a village. If the standard is nothing, then I need to know that. Before I go spend X amount of dollars on a snow blower for that section, I would like to know what council wants to set as their standard for village sidewalk, and we do have quite a bit of it. You don't have to make that decision now, but I would say in the next 45 days, we probably need to set that standard.
So where are you thinking we have, and I could just be not picturing the map. I know you have that stretch as it goes over the bridge. That
You have
goes
the
over.
stretch that goes around the bridge, you have over on that side, but then you have also all the way around the other side on both sides of the street. There's nobody that lives, that corner lot is not anybody's. As you get past that, when you go around to the basketball court, all the way around the basketball court, across the street from the basketball court, the other side of the, you've got both sides of the street where the,
I wasn't thinking of the
all the
stuff.
way down and around. Now go up, and I see the problem is if I could tell you streets, I could tell you which ones.
Yeah,
When you go up around the other lake, all the way around from the walking path, all the way down and around to that first house is all
Yeah.
ours.
is that,
There's
yeah,
a
that,
lot.
yeah, that, I wasn't thinking of that lower retention.
Yes.
I'm gonna call it the lower pond.
Oh.
And those are just the ones
Those-
off the top of my head. Yeah,
Yeah.
and those are the ones that I'm thinking of that I walk constantly over there. So I'm like, wait a minute, we're gonna have to do all of this. And then you start thinking about all of like the wheelchair ramps and like all of those are all our responsibility as well. So
No,
again, my question,
The aprons are abutting property owners. Not all the aprons are ours.
not
right?
all of
The
it, yes, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you
So,
are right. Just a
so I would say it is my opinion that I would leave the standard for the village to be reasonable, the same way it is here, right? So that the the sidewalks must be kept reasonably clean of snow and ice during the winter months, right? You, as the administrative, are the adjudicator of what reasonable is, and then that should inform the code enforcement officer if the village administration has deemed it is necessary for us to clean our sidewalks, then it's necessary for everyone to have cleaned their sidewalks. That would be the reasonableness standard.
Yeah, I think if you want to put something specific in there about the municipal or the community building, I think that's special. I think if the public are specifically going to park there and walk into the community building, then I think that always needs to be taken care of, even if it's a dusting of snow. It needs to be clear and not a safety hazard. But that's the only piece that I see should be part of the maintenance plan for the village, is that access to community building. You always have access to the community building.
So you don't think if there's an 18-inch snow, we should go around the basketball court or any of the sidewalks?
I don't think so. Not right away. I don't think it should be. I think when the community building has snow and it's during working hours for any of the staff or visiting hours for the residents, I think it should be taken care of immediately, like it's when it's falling. I mean, even when it's falling, let's say we're getting 4 inches, but it's not coming all at once. Yet we are still open to the public. We should, 2 inches in or an inch in or whatever makes sense, someone needs to be clearing that path so people can get in the building and salting, keeping up with it. It's my,
Mark, I'm just curious, does anybody else, if you guys don't want to do it, I mean, I guess that's what I'm looking for. I think that's
I'm not saying we don't want to do anything else, but the thing is, the rest of it is optional. People have an option to go.
That's not
into-
reasonable though. If you're requesting that residents do it at a reasonable amount, that means the village doesn't have to do it at a reasonable amount. And maybe we're getting past this topic and I don't want to take this away. I don't think we're really, now we're getting to a non-legislation because this is more
Right.
what does the village want to do. So I don't want to take that away from Mark. So maybe we'll go back to this conversation maybe tonight
Yeah, that's
in
okay.
new business or old
We
business.
don't have a lot more to do. I think we're still good for a half hour. I would definitely, and I'm gonna have to walk around and look some. I don't think all of the sidewalk that we own needs to be shoveled. You had mentioned that stretch that's to what direction would that be? East of that lower lake. That doesn't really connect anything to anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of just goes down because there's sidewalk that goes down and then maybe wraps around to that next house. But if it starts at that next house, there's not enough reason for people to be walking on. There's some of that sidewalk where like, well, no one's going to be walking on this anyway. or that it's not reasonable that they have to walk on it, it doesn't need shoveled. I mean, I would definitely come up with a map and say some of the sidewalk we own, that's important to shovel, some of it, not so much. And that's all I'd say about that.
I think in terms, I like the reasonableness because again, we haven't had really humdinger snow in quite some time. But again, this is more of a Cleveland thing. And the way we did it, the way you did it in Cleveland is it snowed all winter and a lot of times it didn't melt between. Whereas down here, a lot of times it melts between. So you kind of have to use your, judgment on whether you think it's going to melt or not. But in Cleveland, if you didn't clean it off, then immediately when it did a half melt, you would have like an inch of ice everywhere. And that was really dreadful. And so, you know, there was an impetus to, after it snowed in the middle of winter, you're going to get another snow in a couple of days or a week. And you know it's not going to melt between because you look at the weather report. And then you have to get that snow out of there because otherwise it's just going to be horrendous and it could get a lot worse and pile higher and turn into ice, and then you'll never get it off. So it's that kind of common sense snow management that's necessary, that's needed here.
See, I view it as, we'll get on to the next one. As a walker and as kids that are in sports and runners, I do not agree with any of it. I think they need to be at a bare minimum. They need to be cleared off because when my daughter goes and runs, again, she goes through Westerville, New Albany, all of that kind of stuff. When we've lived there, we use all of the sidewalk. So you don't run in the street during a snowstorm or anything like that. You run on the sidewalk. So to me, sidewalks need to be cleared because you don't not run. I understand, for some people, they don't go out when it's cold, but runners and things like that go out 7 days a week or 5 days a week.
Well,
So
I don't, if you think that we're the kind of village that can afford that,
I'm not saying that we can, but
a lot of suburbs can't afford that. I mean, that's wonderful. That sounds terrific, but I don't see how we can afford that.
And I'm saying that these people bought houses that have sidewalks, and it's our responsibility to take care
I
of
mean,
the
I grew up in a community with sidewalks. It doesn't mean.
Getting a little deep in this, guys. So let's
move on.
Sometime closer at maybe a work session, so we can take a quick look. At our legislation for this evening. We have 2020-32, third reading. It's the Garmin Miller, go ahead and start negotiating for a contract, right? Anyone have any problem with us reading that the third time tonight?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
All right, the other one, this one is up and we're on our second, third, and past reading on this. No, we're not.
What are we? Which
No,
one?
this
Hang
is
on.
just first. The stairs, it's saying declare an emergency on it, but it's also given us 3 readings, so.
Correct. So we're going to do all 3 readings and possibly, if you guys want, and only because, again, we're in the end of October to get this done before the end of the year. If we have to wait the 30 days, it's going to be November. It's not going to be done. If we get the readings done.
Concrete in November.
Yes.
Is this for concrete
But
stairs?
just the first reading tonight. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is this for concrete stair and walkway, and concrete stairs and concrete walkway?
I'm not going to completely answer that yet. My opinion is yes. We, and Diane can chime into this. We met with a second person that also, I don't want to say he didn't disagree with, there's more maintenance with not doing concrete. The price difference is definitely not there to not do concrete. There's still debate as to whether or not we do anything with the stairs and just do the walkway. There's other people that think we should not do the walkway, but do the stairs. Basically, here's what I'm going to tell you.
For the council, so you don't have to go through it twice.
Yeah, all I'm going to tell you is you have a first reading. If we get to the third reading and people don't want to waive it, they don't want to do it, we won't do it. I put it in front of you because we're running out of time.
Yeah, because if you're going to do concrete, you can't do it after it gets too cold.
And then at this point, if it's going to be next year or 6 months from now, we're back to the same. I mean, if we're going to do it, we need to get it done, and it needs done. My opinion.
And then we have our third reading on the change of appropriations and everything. will
Let
turn
me
it
make sure you have the right one. That's what I'm trying to pull up right now.
right to Council President Shrimp, who has a nose for these things, to ask questions.
Excuse me?
You're good. You're good with the financials and stuff. You're the one who usually has the good questions about it. So I was gonna
Okay.
let you.
I think I had asked Tiffany my questions. I think she's got the answers that I had asked about, which you'll probably mention in the council meeting.
Yeah, I think it was the capital outlay. The two capital outlays.
Yeah, there was
I'm
the
trying to remember what the answer was.
planning and,
Hang on.
the planning and zoning one, that was 20,000.
And then the other capital outlay, which was 40.
Do you remember what she said? She answered it when we were talking to her. Let me look. The 15,000, okay. The
Oh, wait.
GIS was actually a contract, not capital outlay, so they needed to move that from one to the other. So if you remember right, that's what that was for. Oh,
Yeah,
here.
I thought that was 15,000. I didn't think
It is
was
15,000.
20.
So then the 20, and then she said it was for something else. What did she say? The 15, hang on, maybe if she emailed it to me, I might have that, or did she call? But that was from the GIS, was the 15. And there was something else for, let's see. I'm seeing if she sent it to me. I know she answered it when you were standing there. Now I got to remember.
Well, part of it was, I don't know that it was enough. It was never really, it was pretty vague, but part of it was because they were going to have to pay for our engineer again to do some.
The Westerville Schools. It was Westerville Schools Engineering. That's exactly what it was. You hit it. So
And
yes.
you're the one to go to.
So you got to just keep talking, and now we got to write that down, because then for the meeting, Westerville Schools.
Please write that down.
And the GIS is not a contract, so that's why it was under contractual, and now it was switched back to the other. So you'll actually see it be taken from -15 to 22 on the top. So yes, that is that. Do you have other questions on that though?
On that? Or on the?
In general?
Yeah, on the, well, hold on a second. Let me, I need to pull it up here.
Most of it has to do with CARES Act money. We were told, so Morpsey had reminded me that the money actually had to be, all of the money, the CARES Act money has to be spent by December, but encumbered by some point in time in October. So you may see an additional supplemental appropriation soon. So, but as of right now, we don't have, she could, stick it where it fits, but if it's stuck in the wrong place, we didn't want to encumber all of it right now because we don't have anything else that, like, if she puts it under contractual services and that's not what it's for, it does us no good. So sticking it somewhere just in hopes that we can use it doesn't really make sense either. So we are really trying to figure out exactly what we want to do. I had talked to you guys a tiny bit about, maybe seeing if residents needed help with anything, but I know Blendon Township's doing that. And, I've honestly not heard of any residents with anything. If we set that money aside and there is no need for it, then again, it's just wasted because we can't just throw it, give it away. So there's, that's one thought that we still have that we could do. We could encumber, $5,000 and basically give it to residents in one form or another. But right now, HVAC's going to take quite a bit of that. We know that. We ordered a whole bunch of like touchless things for the bathrooms. So that's in those appropriations. We're looking at getting a couple new laptops that can actually be used from home. Again, just trying to get some new technology for the village because we can. It's going to be sent back if not. So the thought process behind that is, we still clearly have months of COVID, if not another, who knows? So the thought process was if somebody does get sick, if Chief gets sick and has to work from home, at least he would be able to work from home. Right now, we don't have the capability of we can take a laptop from home, but we can't connect to the common drive or anything like that. So they're trying to set some up to where they could be hooked up, somewhat like Kim is doing. So there's some thought process behind that. I don't know that anybody's going to do that, but the thought process is I don't have a current laptop. Chief does not have a current laptop. Leah does not have a current laptop. I have a desktop. They are working on the one that needs to stay on for Kim. They were there working on that one today. So that money is being used out of the CARES Act money as well. Getting an iPad for the pool. That was one of the things that they used their own laptops this year and their own phones. And we ended up getting Wi-Fi down there, so they were able to bring their electronics, but that's how we did the reservation system. They had to have, what I was doing was printing out the sheets in the morning, but by afternoon they were totally outdated. So they were able to tell who was coming in by using their own phones. So if this goes on and we have to use that again next year, we'll have our own iPad for down there. But the thought is we're not going to get it through Verizon or whatever. We're just going to get it through like a Best Buy, because we don't want that monthly fee added on to our cell phone bills. We would rather just have the iPad to be able to be used with Wi-Fi in a building. So whether or not it's used in the community building or at the pool, that's the plan for that. That money's in there. So those are the basic things that are in there for the appropriations. As you guys knew, some of the stuff had run out of money because money was spent out of different places. One of the fire hydrant repairs was actually taken out of maintenance fund. So our maintenance fund actually couldn't even go to Home Depot and use a credit card because that was a couple $1,000s. So, and there were other things that were taken out, but that was like one of the big ones that was taken out. That was done in January, February. So those, and basically the quick part to that is my understanding, because I'm not a fiscal officer, is it's better to not reverse the transaction and redo it, but just to put more in the maintenance fund. And it wasn't just the maintenance fund. There was other funds that had issues. For the chief had some issues. His accounts there was a couple accounts that were showing zero because she'd actually closed out the accounts. Long story short, those are all still being worked on. So with Kim trying to find which accounts are zero and all of that. So you guys this is another appropriation that has a lot of stuff on it that is issues being fixed, and things that we're currently in the process of buying with the CARES Act money is mostly what you're looking at. And then you guys already know that the police fund, going downtown, they did not go downtown this past weekend because we already have, one was on vacation and one is injured. So we did not send anybody downtown for any overtime this week. But that's that. That's what those are for. So if anybody has any questions.
No. And that's all the legislation that's coming up tonight. As I said, we'll give everyone time to read the revised sidewalks thing so they can find any mistakes or errors that they want to have addressed. Anyone else have anything they want to bring up since we're here? Any legislation burning a hole in your pocket?
The only item is my apologies for the delay. I had a 6:30 in my calendar, so sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right.
No, those are all the changes from the last meeting. The highlighted version is something I'm working with MI's engineer, which is EMH&T, to get the proper specs in there for how they did our aprons to sidewalk areas. So that way it'll be appropriately matched. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't hear.
Oh, I just said great.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. And then the only other item that you'll see legislation-wise, I got it today to edit, but it'll be on the first meeting in October. The timeout is the conveyance ordinance to accept all the MI reserve areas. That'll be the first reading.
Do you need that third meeting, second meeting, whatever, the middle of October to get 3 actual readings in case council doesn't want to pass it as an emergency?
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be, it hasn't been requested that it's an emergency from MI standpoint. If you want to get it on all 3 because you have a meeting in there, wonderful, you get it done in October. They're still wrapping up a couple items. Taking it to the beginning of November, I don't think is a real item.
And we already have council scheduled for the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th.
So,
I think she did that because I told her I didn't know if we were gonna need to, but it's technically a work session. But again, if you guys don't want to do a work session, you guys don't want to do a council meeting, it's better to put it on.
Yeah.
And have it than to not have it and try to scramble to put it on.
Oh, excuse me.
So that's up to you guys, not me.
We'll figure that out at the next one or this one.
I agree.
All right, then anyone else? All right, I will see you everyone in 28 minutes.
Yay, bye guys.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye.